Welcome back, guys, to another podcast with us here at Flambard Williams. You'll probably notice I'm your host today and not Fatima, who usually is taking control of all these. Reason being is she is on the hot seat today. So the shoe's on the other foot. We're going to find out everything there is to know about you today, Fatima.
I don't like how
loads of
happy you
questions.
are about this.
Oh, very, very happy. Loads of personal questions.
Great.
Find out a little bit more about you. Give your clients a real true insight as to who they will be dealing with if they haven't already, and who they already have dealt with for many of them.
Lovely. Hit me.
First things first.
Go for it.
Tell us about you.
Okay.
Who is Fatima Baker?
Nice, easy one. I mean, hi guys, for those of you that don't know me, as Jack said, Fatima or Tima, as a lot of them call me. And yeah, I'm one of the brokers here at Flambard Williams, lucky for me. But yeah. I'll keep it very brief. I'm sure you're going to dig deeper.
I am. So tell us about you. Where did it all start for you?
In terms of what? Property or?
Life. Let's go life. In terms of, okay, let me give you a few examples.
Okay.
You, from what we guys know in the office, and for those of you people that don't know,
yep,
you spent a lot of time in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
And that's pretty much where you were brought up.
Yep.
You then moved over here.
Mm-hmm.
So elaborate. What happened? Tell us. What's your story?
Yeah. Okay. So my dad we were born here, born in London, born in Chelsea, moved over to Saudi when I was about 5.
Okay.
Reason being, kind of a bit of a personal backstory, but my parents are both reverts. So they were both born into sort of Christian families. And then when they sort of reverted to Islam, they decided to sort of raise their kids in an environment that sort of catered to the religion.
Yeah.
Moved us over to Jeddah, and that was again for my dad's work. And then I sort of stayed there for 15 years. Nice. And then jumped back ship to the UK 7 years ago when I was studying my degree. So yeah.
Nice. Not a usual upbringing.
No, it wasn't. It was very, for us, it's normal. I don't know any different, but especially when we'd come back to the UK every year, we only then sort of clock the difference. Like, for example, so stupid, but I didn't really use a bus by myself until I was like 15.
Okay.
Because over in Saudi, you have a driver, women weren't allowed to drive, and public transport just isn't a thing.
Yeah.
So coming here, I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of times when I was like 18, 19, 20, I would get on the bus and I'd have an Oyster card and they'd say, well, it's empty. And I'm like, what? So what do I have to do?
Vastly different from my upbringing.
I can imagine.
I think I was trying to hop the bus when I was growing up. So
no, for me, it was actually scary. I didn't know what to do. So
yeah, I can imagine. And in terms of obviously very different lifestyle, settled here back in the UK all nicely now?
Yeah, but it's like a smooth transition because my nan, she lives Wanstead area. So that's East London. My whole family are here. It was only my dad and his wives that were in Saudi, so we'd come back every year to visit family. So yeah, for me it was natural. It was like, well, okay. Nice. Yeah,
well, we'll get to more deep questions very soon, but in terms of Flambard Williams, you've now been working with us for the best part of a year.
Yeah, coming up to a year in a couple of months, I'd say.
Time goes quick.
Yeah.
So why Flambard Williams? What sort of drew you to us as a company?
Nice one. So I was always sort of intrigued by 2 routes when I was growing up. It was either going to be property or architecture, actually, or law, because my dad sort of dabbled into the legal field. And then in Saudi, funny story, they don't have a lot of diversity in sort of education when you get to your A-levels. You're either going to be, it was either medical, science, so it's either science or medical, engineering or business.
Right.
And the only one that stood out to me was engineering, so physics and that. So coming to the UK, I was either going to go legal or engineering, and I went engineering, specialised in sort of structures, worked with a bit of architecture along the way, and yeah, initially went into luxury real estate for a year or so to sort of sell properties in sort of prime London.
Yeah.
But yeah, enjoy
it? Because obviously very, very different type of sales.
Yeah.
What we kind of do now is a different angle of it.
100%.
So why the change? Like, is it so you didn't enjoy the luxury so much? Like, what is it that this gives you a little bit more excitement, or vice versa? What was it that kind of drew you to this sort of the investment side of things?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I did really like it. Don't get me wrong. It's like you go into sort of the creme de la creme of property, especially in like Knightsbridge, Mayfair and that. But honestly, Jack, it was literally just because it gets a bit dull. It's the same mode all the time. You get a client, they want X, Y, Z. They've got that you're only choosing from a handful of properties, and then you don't really have a relationship with them after. You sell the property. If you've developed that property like we did, you've got that as your baby, and then you have to say goodbye to it, and then you just move on to the next. So I get bored very easily.
Vastly different from the Selling Sunset that people probably see on
massively
TV.
Different. It's not, London isn't big enough for that. But in this why Flambard Williams, I think it's very exciting. Every day is so different, and it's just exhilarating, which is why I like it.
Yeah, and I can imagine. I mean, obviously I've been doing it a long time.
Oh yeah.
And if it got boring, I probably wouldn't still.
100%.
It's always kind of something to go at.
Yeah.
Obviously, with your upbringing from Saudi, I know you typically speak. Let's be honest, you get on well with a lot of Middle Eastern clients. I think you probably know extremely well how they like to work.
Yeah.
Their culture, obviously, massively.
Yeah.
How's that kind of helped in terms of getting into the investment side of things? How's that really helped? Because we deal with a lot of clients over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly, as you always tell us, it's about the relationship. So with any client, obviously you've trained us really well to know that build the relationship with the client, get to know them. And it's second nature to me, understanding how they operate. And Arabs as well, they're massively relationship orientated. So if you can get along well with them, if you can relate to them and obviously speak their language, make them feel comfortable, it does really help. I feel like it allows them to sort of settle into a very English company very quickly.
And you say, speaking of language, obviously we was in Saudi last year. First time I've been. Yeah,
you're going to impress us with the Arabic?
Yeah, I can. No, definitely not here. But you speak Arabic, right?
Yeah.
Fluently. And that really helped. I mean, I saw that firsthand.
Yeah.
And me trying to talk to them.
Yeah.
Very different. And then you come in and they just suddenly instantly like you. So I think that's helped a lot.
100%.
Dealing that relationship. Because that's one thing I noticed. I think that I could get a relationship from them.
Yeah.
You'd speak to them and suddenly there's just instantly at ease.
Yeah. I think even if they speak, like obviously people that inquire with us, they already do speak English, otherwise they wouldn't reach out. But as soon as you switch up, you're right. They feel a lot more at home. They feel like they can trust you a bit more. And it just helps with that relationship.
Is that because it's something in the culture? Is it something where they kind of prefer to, obviously naturally everyone likes to speak the language, but is it just because there's more trust there because you know how they work, you've lived there? Do you find that's helped?
I think so. I feel like it's a combination, depends on the client, to be honest. What I found is when they inquire with Flambard Williams, let's forget sort of Saudi for a moment when we went to Cityscape, but they inquired with us thinking, I've had a client actually say we thought we were just going to deal with an English person, which they're fine with, but it's just a pleasant surprise. And then it's like, okay, we have someone who has been brought up in sort of our neck of the woods, and it just helps them sort of relax, and they don't have to worry about translating certain phrases or worried about so that's 100%. But I think in Riyadh I was surprised that there weren't that many people that spoke English. Like I thought they would. There would be more.
I'd have been very unstuck if you weren't there. So
I was like I was a little translator.
Yeah, literally I was like, Fatima.
Just back there.
Yeah. So in terms of the industry, obviously you said you come from the luxury background, things like that.
Yeah.
What do you think's the sort of hardest part in terms of from the investment side of things? It's vastly different. You're not selling a beautiful looking building with stunning views and a £20 million place, which is always going to look
100%.
lavish.
Yeah.
Some of the property we sell, so as it is, it's not, doesn't know it looks lavish.
No,
it kind of looks pretty basic, but from an investment side, it's extremely lucrative. So what would you say is the hardest part in terms of within the industry and within that transition?
I think it's selling the numbers and the potential versus selling the actual product and how it looks. A lot of people, especially if they're investing for the first time, for some reason they have an emotion attached to it thinking I'm going to live there or I wouldn't live there so I don't want to buy it. Whereas you have to really meticulously break down, this isn't for you. You're not going to live there. This is for your, for the future of your children or whatever their goal is. This is for the appreciation of that property. And some people get it quicker than others, but sometimes it's just like they just don't get it. So I feel like that is the hardest transition between a property that you walk in and you're like, I'll buy it, the postcode will sell it, versus you're looking at, I don't know, a little apartment in Liverpool and they're like, what's that for?
And did you find it hard making that? Because from your perspective, you've gone from selling the luxury. Did you find yourself, okay, I now need to change in terms of it is selling that dream of what is actually going to do that? Because whilst you're selling a property, it's very different in terms of you're selling the emotional and what it's going to deliver for that client. Did you personally find it hard? Like, did you find you going back to old ways or?
Sometimes I think, because you know it better than anyone, Jack, right? When we're in the office, even if it's all of us guys, we're so different, but we each have our favorite development, so to speak.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I feel like it's not a development that I'm looking at, like, oh, that's then I would have to take myself out of that situation and be like, okay, but you might have a client that likes it, so understand that property.
Yeah.
So yes and no. I feel like because every client is so different, it makes it easy for me to have to put myself in a non-emotional standpoint. But it can be hard. Don't get me wrong. You go from selling.
You like the lavish.
That's it. You go from selling something that looks amazing to something that is quite a little smaller. It's like 400 square foot, and the returns are amazing, but you're just like, oh, what is it? But yeah, a bit of a transition for me.
And do you find that you're one of 2 girls in the office that from the sales side of things?
Yes.
How do you feel that helps in terms of within the industry? There's fewer probably women salespeople within the industry.
Yeah.
Too many women make probably better salespeople than what men do.
We hope so.
Truth be told. But why do you how do you find that? Yeah. How do you find it in the industry? Do you find it that sometimes it helps?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I personally think if it was me on the other shoes and I felt I was buying, I'd probably tend to trust her a little bit more. You kind of don't have that sleazy salesman. So do you find that's helped, or how do you find the industry being a woman?
I think it's a pro and a con. A pro, obviously, like you said, me and Izzy, I feel like it comes a bit more naturally to us to sort of pick up the phone and have a bit of a chat with someone. There's not that pressure because they are more open to have a conversation, and then we get into the selling part later. So I do find it's easy. I don't think when I pick up the phone, like, oh my gosh, like what if the conversation doesn't flow? I mean, unless it's a certain client.
Yeah.
But the con of that, Jack, I would say, is it's a very competitive industry.
Yeah.
And the nature, I guess, of us girls, we're very similar in terms of, I don't believe in all this horoscope stuff, but as you always say to me, Fatima, we're Libras, so we're the same. And I don't really believe in that, but there are similarities where we are a bit more sensitive. If it, we can pick up the phone and a client is just absolutely like harsh and then there is that competitiveness amongst us in the office that can kind of make you feel a bit daunted.
Do you think that's why a lot of women don't go into the industry? Like, do you think they don't because there's that? There's that
conception,
perception of it in terms of you get some men who go, I just want to deal with a man. So personally, for me, I always think
the other way around.
The other way around. Yeah. But do you just find that it's harder to sometimes gel with certain men? They just don't like it. I think you do incredibly well. I think every client that
never say that normally.
Well,
I'm joking.
Trying to be nice. And every client I speak to of yours can't sing your praises enough. So do you find it harder?
No, I think client-wise, I think it's easier. But I like that question. Why do you think that's why a lot of women don't get involved? To be honest, I would say it's probably from the initial point of having the interview to get into a sales job. Yeah. Because if you think about it, I mean,
pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about ours, like Flambard Williams as a whole in general, you walk in, you guys are interviewing a good 60 people, and of the 60 there are 3 women. That in itself is quite daunting.
Of course, I get that.
So I don't think it's the actual job. I think it's just when you enter the field, you're like, you see you're more men than women. You can feel a bit small. I loved it though. I was the opposite. I walked in, I was like, there are only 2 girls, one of us has to get it.
So, I think there was loads of blokes in the office?
No, I loved it because there's a competition. Sharp. But no, I like the fact that it's like my degree. At one point there were 300 of us in a class, and I think there were about 20 women. Of the 20, I think only 4 of us finished. So it's like you feel that I'm very competitive, so you want to compete to get to the end. So I think if they're intimidated by men, then it could be a standing, like they want to go away.
Fair play. So last question in terms of about the job role and things like that. What's your favourite thing about the job?
Can I say 2 things very quickly?
Okay, go on.
Okay, I'm a chatterbox, so it's fine. Yeah. But 2 things is...
Oh, we know it.
Yeah. The first one would have to be, like you said, I love building the relationships with my clients and the excitement that they get when they've got a really good product and sort of maintaining that with them. But the second thing, I mean, I don't say it in the office for obvious reasons, but I love the team that we build, and everyone we all celebrate each other's wins. It's not like, oh, this person's doing better than the other. It's sort of like we all move together and motivate each other. We have something in the office, when you tell us to sort of power dial or sort of, and it's when everyone's doing a task together, there's a really nice feeling in the office.
I think that's why a lot of people like it, right? Everyone gets on, we socialise together, we have fun.
Exactly.
And that kind of makes the job easier as well. And I also genuinely think that feeds into the clients in terms of we're naturally happier because we like the job. You then want to do more for the clients. You're happy to go the extra mile, and so it goes on.
100%.
The team is definitely a big.
Because I think it's the selling point, the winning point for us. Like, if no matter how much money you're making, if we didn't enjoy the office atmosphere, no one would stick around.
Great, totally agree. So let's get on to the topic of property now.
Lovely.
While we're all actually here, and why people will probably be watching.
Oh well, yeah.
So first-time investors.
Yeah.
They read the news. There is a huge amount of information to kind of try and absorb. A lot of investors have to be kind of a bit of a sponge at the start.
Yep.
What advice would you give to someone who is investing for the very first time?
Good question. I think number one would be sort of, you've inquired for a reason. So, trust the person that's on the other end of the line. Don't get me wrong, I'm okay to say it. We are salespeople, so we do want your business. But at the end of the day, if the process is done correctly, you can really understand that we are here to help you. So I would say trust your broker, but also...
And how do you think that is built? For me, I think trust is built over time.
Yeah, definitely.
But how do you build trust with your clients?
I think just listening to them, really understanding why they are doing this in the first place, and not just, suggesting a property or, properties for the sake of it. You really have to tie it into the goal, and every client, as you know, is so different. So you're right, you build it over time, but you really hear them and you understand, and you make them understand why you're doing what you're doing, or why you're suggesting what product, why you're looking at this area, and so on. So yeah, I'd say trust your broker, but also do your research as well.
Yeah, so I'm a first time investor now.
Okay.
I come to you, you give me some advice. Are you recommending me straight away? How does it work? What outline the process for people who are watching this and haven't dealt with us?
Yeah.
Maybe even looking to potentially deal with us down the line. Give a very, I know you like to chat. Brief outline of what the process is, because a lot of people, they probably expect to phone us up and they get pitched a property for day one. So tell us briefly how it works.
So if it were you, for example, I'd first have a little chat with you on the phone once you've made the inquiry, find out about your goals, what you're looking at, obviously how much you're looking to invest, and so on.
Yeah.
Once I've understood absolutely the ins and the outs of what you're doing or why you're doing it, any fears you may have surrounding property, and got you to ask questions about us once you're comfortable with us, I'd then go back to our research team and meticulously plan with them the sort of areas that I'd recommend for you. And, at this stage, Jack, we're not even looking at property, are we? We're literally just sitting down, educating you on the area, maybe looking at some example numbers, sort of seeing, what you can expect to get in that area, what you have to put in. And then once you're comfortable with that, go down to actually looking at properties, the exciting part, obviously, and slowly breaking it down. But I always say to my clients that the process I see it's really as slow or as fast as the client wants it to be. And then we're sort of just here to guide you along the way.
Because we have some clients that will deal in, days?
Yeah.
Others may take months.
Exactly.
So we and like you say, trust is better over time.
Yeah.
Some clients build trust quicker than others.
100%, yeah. So let them guide.
Just understand.
Yeah, they lead it. Well, we guide them and then they sort of lead the way.
And you mentioned there in regards to areas and things like that. We're obviously a big promoter in terms of city centres typically versus other areas. What do you think the city centres have in terms of as an edge versus maybe some like suburban areas, or especially I think key example, you've got London, then you've got a vast amount of areas outside of London. So why do we typically, or why would you recommend city centres?
I think it's down to, it's an investment at the end of the day. So you really want it to be making you money. You want it to be in an area that there's a high demand. And you typically find that the city centres have that demand for not just any tenant, but a tenant that's reliable, a tenant that is going to be able to pay the money, make use of the property and look after it. Typically you want your young working professionals, and that is in the city centre. You go outskirts, you're then looking at a property that won't really appreciate. And also you've got a different type of tenant, maybe someone who's retiring, a family, or it could even be someone who's looking to share. Although that will give you money, it will yield, it won't be as reliable. There will be, unfortunately, the niggly bits. And don't get me wrong, we all have hearts. We're not going to just try and evict a tenant. And as I'm sure everyone has seen in the news, you can't actually do that as easily anymore.
Correct.
So you want to make sure that your property is as hassle-free as possible, and the city centre will just give you that.
Perfect. And have you seen within the industry and doing this for quite some time? I know it doesn't seem a lot, but it's a lot when you're dealing with a vast amount of clients you're now dealing with. But is there a common misconception sort of seeing, especially with all this news that's going around? Is there a common misconception that people are saying frequently that is just, not correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but there's a couple that really stand out to me. I think the first one is that the first one would be that off-plan investments aren't just worth the hassle, that you can get more for your buck if you just get something that's ready now.
Yeah.
Where every client is different, I think what we've seen is that the off-plan is actually the more popular route amongst both first-time investors and, as we call them, serial investors. Because you can benefit from, I mean, for first-time investors, the process is a lot slower. You don't have to put all your money in straight away, and also there's a lot more to choose from. You're not just getting the sort of what's left over, because every property was off plan at one point. And also I feel like short-term lets, everyone says that you're only getting money for a very small window of time, and then it's sort of a dream that's sold to you. I think that's the complete opposite. If you look at the right location and you really do your research on the sort of tourism rates in that area, you're actually making a lot more depending on where you go. And
you say the right location?
Yes.
What does that look like in terms of, typically when I think tourism locations, I'm thinking coastal. So is there an area that you typically think that short-term lets as work well?
Well, not coastal. I mean, we're in the UK. As much as you probably can get at this rate, not even a week, 3 days of sun, you can't get it for the rest of the year. So you're more so looking at not only, short-term lets in a coastal Brighton, Cornwall area, looking at first pick for me, Liverpool. A city that is not only undergoing major regeneration, but it's just got that demand of tourism at the moment. I mean, what was it last year? Double of London. I think we had like 60 million tourists, and over 60% of them stayed longer than 3 or 4 nights or something like that.
Is that really what it is?
Yeah, I haven't read the article for a few weeks, but that was in that range. And you're actually looking at a major city that's sort of 4 or 5 years behind Manchester, so it's up and coming, and also you don't have to worry about it being on the beach and not renting out, because it does. You're looking at 70% occupancy rate, I think, at the moment.
I think it's 70, just over that.
So I think it's the complete opposite. If someone says to you, go buy a coastal cottage and it's going to rent out, no, probably won't.
Especially in this weather.
I'd love it to, because then it means that we have some sun, but unfortunately not.
And you going back to one of the things you mentioned there was the off-plan side of things.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Is it not? Like you said, in terms of misconception, in your opinion, of off-plan, and this may relate back as well to the Middle East.
Okay.
The Middle East is massively about off-plan.
Yes.
Do you think it's worth it in the UK?
100%. I think if you can get yourself in the right location, at the right time, which is very important, you want to get on the boat early, then you're 100%. You can benefit from, in most cases, a property that's sort of below market value. If it is, a year and a half, 2 years away, and you've got the patience, it will appreciate, and by the time it's getting built, not massively, but 5% or 7% appreciation is better than what it's doing in the bank, right? So I would 100% say it's worth it.
Cool. So I'm now going to bring it back a little bit more to you again.
Lovely.
Go into the find out a little bit more about you.
Great.
Before we start to wrap things up. So
sure.
So take it back to the Middle Eastern side of things and things like that. So do you think it's helped being raised between the likes of Saudi and now the UK?
Yeah. Do
you think it's helped you as a grow and develop as a person in this job and just generally? Like, because for me, I've only ever lived in the UK. I'd hope that one day I'd be able to live in a different country. I think it'd be a great experience. So do you think it's really, helped you grow up?
I like that question. Yes, I don't think I wouldn't have answered yes. I probably have said not really. Rewind sort of a few years back when I was like at uni and whatnot. But I feel like, especially in the job, you deal with so many different types of people, and not only do you have to think fast on your feet, you have to adapt.
Yeah.
And I feel like Saudi and the UK are so different. They are worlds apart in a good way. They both bring something different to the table. But I feel like for me, it's allowed me to not get a bit, deer in headlights when I meet a different type of person, a different type of client. So I feel like it's definitely benefited.
And in terms of, as I said, you deal with a lot of clients based that way.
Yep.
Because you speak the language, it makes kind of sense. Why do people in the Middle East, so for people who potentially watching this that are based out there, why is the UK a pretty solid place and a secure place that people in the Middle East look at to invest in the UK? Why they come into the UK to invest in property?
Yeah, it's a good question. If the most common consensus amongst all of them, which again, it makes a lot of sense to me, is anywhere in the Middle East that's undergoing regeneration. It's still quite new. So let's look at, I don't know, the most regenerated city or country at the moment is Dubai, right? Not that all my clients are from Dubai, but Dubai is very, very new in comparison to the UK. So although what they're doing is insane, the developments there are fantastic, they can, the numbers may look good, the product may look good, but what a lot of my clients have told me in the fear is there's not much to compare it to. So they can't really rewind time that much or rewind the clock back and compare it to something that's successfully been done over there. And there is also the fear of they have so much space out there. So my clients, some of them are worried about, what if we buy this and then they're going to prop up another one next door and mine isn't going to be doing that well.
So it's more the security side of it.
100%. And also the UK, the pound is so much stronger. It's just easy. Actually, a client of mine said this to me about a year ago when I started. He said, if you look at it from the perspective of a degree, right? He goes, he has 3 kids. And he said, I put my kids and university in the UK, even though we have amazing sort of universities in the Middle East, based on the fact that the degree in the UK is recognised much higher than a degree anywhere else in the world. And the investment for him was that although he has invested in the Middle East, it's more so that security and the strength of the investment over in the UK. And I thought, that's a very easy way of looking at it.
Because you come back to do your degree here, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Is that the main reason? Did your parents want you to do your degree here for that reason as well?
My mum, yes. My mum has lived out here for a while. My dad, on the other hand, I was the only one crazy enough to go down sort of the numbers engineering route. So he had a couple of ideas of university out in Dubai actually,
right?
But at the end of the day they agreed, you know what, the UK will probably have a lot more to offer for you. The degree is probably going to be highly recognized outside of, and they probably just have better resources, whatever it may be. So yeah, that's why I came back.
Well, listen, I'm going to give you the signature final question, which I know you love to ask.
Yes, I do.
I think I got asked this. I think everyone
gets it.
Has got this question, so it's only fair.
Actually, yours is a bit different because you're quite a bit older.
Oh, okay, thanks.
That's all right.
So yours is, it's only fair that we give you a signature question back. So
word it right.
Here it is. I'm going to read it word for word.
Go for it.
If you could fast forward 10 years, where do you hope to see yourself?
Gosh, 37-year-old me. Where do I hope I am?
Yeah. Come on.
Well, I'd hope that I've got a few running investments under my belt, property, of course, being the top one.
Yeah.
Because, something that I do believe in and I know it can secure my future and my family's. And I think other than that, I'd like to see that I'd like to slow down a bit. I don't see myself ever slowing down. Okay. So I'd like to at least think, okay, maybe by 38, 40, I've got a vision that I would sit back and be like, okay, don't work yourself to the ground. And finally, personal life, I'd like to have at least a couple of kids, maybe. 10
years?
Yeah. 30. Yeah. I feel like 38 is a good time. 38, you can't, 100%. You can't have no kids by 40. You can, but I don't want that.
Right.
So yeah, I'd like to have a couple of kids, and that's
got a lot of work to do, Fatima, in the next 10 years.
God help me.
More excuse to keep you going, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Keep the cogs going.
Yeah, correct. Well, listen, guys, that's a little bit more to Fatima.
Thank you
so much for giving everyone a bit more insight into you.
I feel like you enjoyed this more than I did.
I did enjoy it. I get used to it.
No.
But yeah, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, hopefully you've enjoyed, and said, for those of you who have worked with Fatima, and for those of you who potentially will work with Fatima in the future, that's giving you a much better insight as to her personal life, and also a little bit more about the property market as well. So that's it from me. You'll have Fatima back on the next podcast, unfortunately.
Don't worry, guys. I'll kick him out soon.
Yeah, so she'll be back. And thanks for letting me host today. And I'll catch you soon. Take care.